The morning sun streamed through the glass walls of Donovan Enterprises, casting golden light across the polished marble floor of the lobby. The air smelled faintly of fresh coffee from the cafe tucked neatly in the corner, and the rhythmic tapping of hurried shoes echoed like music in a grand cathedral. For Amara Johnson, a young intern only in her second week at the company, the environment felt as intimidating as it was awe-inspiring. Every detail seemed magnified: the sleek furniture, the glittering digital display board announcing meetings, the confident stride of executives in suits who barely glanced at her as they passed by. Amara had dreamed of this internship since her final year at university, and though she had earned it through sheer determination, she carried an unshakable feeling of being an outsider. She was the youngest in the office, one of very few black interns in the entire building, and her nerves made her feel like her every movement was being scrutinized, even when no one was looking. Her station was at the reception desk that week, where she had been tasked with greeting visitors, scheduling passes and answering phones. It was not glamorous, but she accepted the responsibility with pride because she believed that greatness was built on small acts done well. Her mother had always told her, "Amara, if you treat the small moments with excellence, life will trust you with the bigger ones." And so, every time she smiled at a guest, every time she offered directions, every time she picked up a call with clarity and warmth, she reminded herself that even if nobody applauded, she was planting seeds for her future. That Tuesday morning began like any other. The steady flow of visitors arrived: business consultants, delivery drivers, applicants for interviews, each greeted with the same professional courtesy. Amara's palms still dampened with nerves whenever a senior executive stopped by, but she kept her voice steady and polite. Around mid-morning, as the lobby quieted briefly, the glass doors slid open again. A man stepped inside. He was in his mid-40s perhaps, tall, with streaks of grey at his temples. He wore a simple dark coat, not flashy like the executives, but his posture carried quiet dignity. His eyes scanned the room, not hurriedly but carefully, as though he was studying the rhythm of the place. Something about him drew Amara's attention instantly. She straightened in her chair, smoothed her blazer, and smiled. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Donovan Enterprises," she said brightly, her voice carrying warmth. "How can I assist you today?" The man looked at her but did not respond. His lips pressed together, his gaze steady but silent. Amara repeated her greeting, a little slower this time, wondering if perhaps he had not heard her. Again, no reply, only a subtle tilt of the head. For a brief moment, she felt that familiar panic rise in her chest, the kind that made her worry about making mistakes. But then, something clicked in her memory: the way his eyes moved, the way his expression shifted without words. She recognized it. He was deaf. Her heart quickened, but not with fear, with purpose. Without hesitation, she lifted her hands and began to sign. "Good morning. My name is Amara. How can I help you?" The man's eyes widened, the corners of his mouth lifting in surprise. Then, for the first time since he entered, his entire face lit up with a smile that was both relieved and grateful. He signed back, his movements smooth but deliberate. "I have an appointment." "I'm a little early," Amara signed back, her fingers moving gracefully, though she had not practiced in some time. "That's no problem at all. Who are you here to meet?" As they exchanged signs, the lobby seemed to pause. A few employees passing by slowed their steps, watching with quiet curiosity. Some tilted their heads, perhaps in mild astonishment. Most had never seen anyone at Donovan Enterprises greet a deaf visitor in their own language. Amara, however, was too focused to notice the whispers. She was simply doing what felt natural, what her heart told her to do. She remembered the friend she had once known in high school, a girl named Layla who had been born deaf. Back then, Amara had taught herself sign language, so she could sit with Layla at lunch and talk about everything from crushes to homework. They had laughed together, dreamed together, and though Layla had moved away, her memory had left Amara with a skill most of her peers never thought to learn. And now, here, in this gleaming corporate lobby, that skill was opening a door. The man signed his name, and Amara quickly checked the visitor log, then handed him a sleek badge. She gestured politely toward the elevators, signing, "Your meeting will be on the top floor. You can wait here if you prefer, or I can guide you upstairs." The man gave a small nod of gratitude and chose to wait, taking a seat in the lounge. Before he walked away, he signed something that made Amara pause. "Thank you for seeing me, not just looking at me." The words struck her heart. She smiled softly and signed back, "Everyone deserves to be seen." Unbeknownst to Amara, a pair of eyes had been watching the entire exchange from the mezzanine above. The director of operations, Mr. Harris, stood frozen at the railing, his mind racing. He'd seen countless interns rotate through the front desk, most performing their tasks like robots, never stepping beyond the script. But this was different. There was no hesitation, no awkwardness, no pity, just dignity. He scribbled something quickly into his notebook before heading toward the elevators. Meanwhile, Amara returned to her desk, her heart still light from the encounter. She thought nothing more of it, not realizing that her small act of kindness had already set into motion a chain of events that would change her entire future. To her, it was just another morning. To the man she had greeted, however, it was a moment of rare humanity in a world that too often overlooked him. And little did Amara know, the man she had just greeted so warmly, the man she assumed was simply a visitor with an appointment, was no ordinary guest. He was Donovan himself, the CEO, the visionary behind the empire she dreamed of one day working in. The following morning, the entire building seemed to hum with unusual energy. Whispers traveled like wildfire through the office corridors, and every employee walked with a curious urgency. Amara, still stationed at the reception desk, noticed the difference but assumed it had nothing to do with her. She greeted visitors as usual, answered calls, and kept her posture calm, even though inside she still carried the weight of being new and wanting desperately to prove her worth. She had no idea that her simple act the day before had already become the talk of the executive floor. She did not know that her name was being repeated in meetings she wasn't invited to, her actions dissected and admired by people she had never met. At precisely 11 o'clock, a message buzzed her desk phone. "Miss Johnson, please report to the main boardroom immediately." Her heart skipped. The boardroom? That was a place reserved for directors, investors, and senior leaders. Interns never set foot inside unless they were delivering coffee trays. For a brief moment, panic threatened to crush her. Had she done something wrong? Was there a complaint against her? With trembling hands, she straightened her blazer, smoothed her hair, and began the long walk down the hallway that seemed to stretch forever. When she pushed open the tall wooden doors, her breath caught in her throat. The room was immense, its walls lined with glass that revealed the skyline glittering in the midday sun. Round the massive oval table sat at least 20 executives, all in immaculate suits, their eyes turning toward her as she entered. The silence was so thick it made her ears ring. At the head of the table sat a man she instantly recognized, the visitor from yesterday. But this time he was not in his modest coat. He was in a sharp, tailored suit, exuding confidence and authority. His posture was regal, his presence commanding. For the first time, Amara realized who he truly was, Mr. Donovan, the CEO of the company, the man whose vision had built the empire she was now a tiny part of. Her legs nearly buckled under the weight of realization. She had greeted him as an ordinary visitor. She had signed with him, smiled at him, spoken to him without any clue of his identity. Shame and fear flooded her. Had she overstepped boundaries? Had she offended him somehow by not knowing? Her mind screamed at her to apologize, but before she could say a word, Mr. Donovan raised his hand gently, signaling silence. Then slowly, deliberately, he began to sign. This young woman reminded me yesterday of something I nearly forgot. Dignity, humanity, respect. She treated me not as a title, not as a stranger, but as a person. His interpreter, seated beside him, translated aloud for the room. For years I have tested this company. I walk in unannounced, without my entourage, without the power of my name. to see how people treat those they believe unimportant. Too often I have been ignored, dismissed, or treated as a burden. Yesterday was different. Yesterday, Imara Johnson showed me the kind of leadership this world desperately needs. Gasps echoed around the room. Several executives shifted uncomfortably in their seats, recalling their own hurried encounters with him in the past. Imara, frozen by the weight of his words, felt tears prick her eyes. Donovan continued, his hands moving with eloquence. She did not just communicate with me. She connected with me. She made me feel seen, something wealth and power cannot buy. That is the spirit I want at the heart of Donovan Enterprises. The interpreter's voice trembled slightly as he translated the CEO's next words. Effective today, Amara's internship will not follow the usual path. She will be placed directly into our leadership development program. I want her ideas, her vision, and her compassion influencing this company's future. The room erupted in applause. Executives who moments ago barely noticed her now clapped with genuine admiration. Amara, overwhelmed, could barely find her voice. She wanted to sink into the floor, but at the same time, her heart soared with gratitude and disbelief. She managed only a soft whisper, "Thank you," though her trembling hands instinctively signed the same words. Donovan smiled, signing back, "You earned it." From that day forward, Amara's life transformed. No longer was she just the nervous intern at the reception desk. She was now seen as a symbol of what kindness and integrity could achieve. Colleagues approached her with respect, seeking her perspective. Her story spread beyond the walls of the company, inspiring others to treat people not by status or assumption, but with simple humanity. Amara herself, humbled by the sudden shift, reminded herself daily that this opportunity was not just for her. It was a chance to represent all those who had ever been underestimated or overlooked. And though her journey was only beginning, she carried with her the same lesson she had lived in that lobby. The smallest gestures, an open smile, a kind word, a few signed movements can ripple outward into transformations greater than we ever imagine. As the chapter closes, a voiceover-like message speaks directly to the viewers. Friends, if this story moved you, remember this: true greatness is not measured by power or titles, but by the way you treat the people around you, especially those who may not have a voice the world readily hears. You never know who is watching, and you never know when your small act of kindness will open the door to your destiny. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories that inspire, uplift, and remind us of the power of humanity, please take a moment to subscribe. Join our growing family, and together, let's spread kindness across the world.